This car may or may not be moving right now. By no means do I condone texting or vlogging and driving at all. Do not do it. It's dangerous. Probably illegal.
I'm tired. It's super raw. It's real. It's so real.
All right, so the car is definitely not moving. I am stopped. I am not driving and texting or vlogging or whatever. Welcome back to Exalt Expo, episode number 3. I am Joe Clark, your designated curator, and in today's video, I bring you Seth Godin on Marie TV with Marie Forleo, one of my favorite young women out there doing her thing. She was just on Oprah and had a speech on there. That was awesome. Check it out. She has a great channel for interview, guy or girl. Want to see somebody that really did a lot of grinding on their own and came up in a really unique way. She's a great person to follow. But for the sake of this conversation in this video, we're highlighting Seth Godin, and he's quite the marketing legend. If you haven't heard of him or aren't aware of his work, I think he's published like something like 19 books, I think more actually. But in today's video, I really want to highlight what they're talking about. The title of the video on Marie's channel is The Truth About Your Calling, and I think it's a pretty insightful. Seth adds a lot of very unique perspective to this conversation. I won't say too much about it. Here it is. Check it out.
Disappointments and setbacks. So they come up with work, they come up with business, they come up with our life, and I feel like one of the themes that I've seen throughout your work over the years is having people be really comfortable with failures and setbacks and all the twists and turns. Can you talk a little bit about that journey? We have a lot of people in our audience who are just starting out, and I feel like there's so much fear about if they fail or if things are going to flop, and you always have such a great point of view on it.
I used to think that Monopoly was a good board game. And I, in fact, invented Godin Monopoly, which you can find the rules for online. But I thought it was good. Like at one point, my kids and I were so good at it, we could play it in the cart without the board. We just knew where all the properties were, and we would roll the dice in our head and do the whole thing.
Wow.
Monopoly is not a good board game. I've come to that conclusion. But there's a good lesson here, and the lesson is this. Unless you're 4 years old, if you lose at Monopoly, I think you realize it's not personal. Right? It was a game. You didn't get the rolls you needed. Maybe you made a couple strategy mistakes, but you can play again tomorrow. It's not about you. Don't have a tantrum. Don't turn the board over, and don't beat yourself up. It's just a game. So what if we take that mindset, which is very adult and very mature and works for us, and apply it to what happens if your book proposal doesn't get sold, or apply it to what happens if no one responds to the comment you posted under this thing, right? In all of these things, you didn't get a promotion? Well, that's a little bit like landing on Park Place when someone else has an apartment there. Sorry, but it's not necessarily about you. We are playing this game with 1.5, 2, 3, 4 billion other people, moving pieces around, contributing, investing, sometimes landing on other properties, figuring out what to roll next, right? If you can look at it that way, the question is, will you be better at the game or will you be worse at the game? And what we know is you will be better at the game. You will be better at the game because you can approach it with joy, and you can approach it without being locked up in tense fear, right?
Yes.
And so isn't that the goal, to be better at the game?
Yes.
So we can be mindful, we can be present, we can breathe and say, oh, that's interesting. And that answer, that's interesting, is so much better than, oh my God, I'm never going to get another thing, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then I'm going to be dead. Because we all fear being dead, but we don't have to fear being dead every time the phone rings, every time we get the little tweet sound, every time, like, it actually isn't fatal. So don't act like it's fatal.
I love it.
Entrepreneurs, for example. Too many entrepreneurs think that there's a prize for originality. There's no prize for originality at all. You should steal a different person's idea. You should bring something that worked in Detroit to Cleveland, because you don't have to worry about apologizing and say, well, yeah, I went to a muffin store in Detroit that worked, so I brought it to Cleveland. So what? What matters is now there's someone in Cleveland who's engaging with you, buying something from you that gives both of you pleasure. And there are so many places where we need more of something. No one's asking you to be that person who invents something that never existed before. I would blog every day. I think everyone should do so. And here's the reason. If you know that tomorrow you have to say something about something you noticed, about something that might help someone else, about an opinion you have that might stand the test of time, you will form those opinions. You will notice those things. You will invent that idea. And if day after day, week after week, you leave this trail behind of thoughtful examination of your world, you can't help but get better at whatever it is you seek to do. And if, as a byproduct, other people read it and trust you more, that's a jackpot. The people who win at Jeopardy aren't better than the people who lose at Jeopardy, except in one thing. They press the buzzer before anybody else. And the only way to press the buzzer before everyone else is to press the buzzer before you're sure you know the answer. Teach people to lead and teach them to solve interesting problems. And the way you do that is by teaching kids to fail at solving interesting problems. Because that's the only way you ever get good at solving interesting problems. That this idea of failing and getting lost on the subway and finding your way home, failing when you put up a blog post, and if you're 12, I hope it's under another name, but put it up there and no one likes it,
yes.
Right? Failing to get your Wikipedia edits approved. Once we get into this habit of realizing it's not fatal, then we get back to that whole Monopoly riff. Like we are adults trying to undo the damage that all that well-meaning training did. Well, let's change the well-meaning training, shall we? That the most famous musical group of all time doesn't last forever with everyone. Our goal isn't to touch everyone. Our goal is to touch someone, to change someone. Just one person. If you get good at that, then do 5, then do 100. But stop worrying about everyone. Everyone doesn't matter.
So here's my big takeaway from this video. If you're gonna fail at something you believe in. Let me tell you what I mean. Not until I got hurt in college and I had to hang up my cleats for the last time did I realize how much I didn't believe in what I was doing. I started playing football when I was about 9, 10 years old. Loved it, loved the camaraderie, loved going to practice, loved game day. But as I got older, maybe it turns into a little bit more of a business, that I realized the biggest parts I liked about football was the attention that it gave. I liked the attention that you got from girls. I liked the attention that you got from friends. I liked the attention that some of us were lucky enough to get from the newspaper and TV and things like that. And obviously there's just like the carrot, right? The carrot on the stick that like maybe one day you'll make it big, right? You might make it to the pros. And I know if I had to play football in a leather helmet, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. Like, what is that? Who plays football? I mean, those people loved football. The people that played football in a leather helmet and got paid like $100 a year, they loved football. I don't love football. I can't speak for anybody else. I'm sure there's tons of people out there that love football and they would do it even if it was free. That's how you know if you love something. If you do it and you would do it for free, you love it. I wouldn't do it for free. I got paid to go to college, not paid to go to college, but like I got a scholarship to go to college for it. And that's why I played football, because it gave me something. It gave me something more than intrinsic giving me. It gave me something outwardly. It gave me what I thought was purpose, right? And lo and behold, really what I was doing was not my purpose, in hindsight, right? What I was doing was not necessarily something that I loved. What I learned was I was good at it. I was good enough at it to get by giving it really, in some ways, the minimal amount of energy that was required of me to do it. And that being said, I gave it a lot, right? 6 a.m. workouts. Obviously, when you get to college, everything is on a super regimented schedule. But I think you understand my point, right? Don't confuse something that you're good at with something that is your calling, and vice versa. Don't confuse something that you're not good at or not experienced at with something that isn't or can't be your calling. I see so oftentimes the exact opposite. Something that we feel so timid about, so reserved about, ends up being some of the best risks that we can possibly take. I know of countless stories and have talked to countless people who are stepping out and doing things that make them feel so uncomfortable, but they know it's the one thing that they feel called to do at this very time. And I think that's so great. Right now, I know more people and more friends, including myself, that are putting themselves out there, being vulnerable, blogging every day, which I think is a great practice. Even if it doesn't result in anything, just being able to put your thoughts out there and resonate on those thoughts and think about what you're thinking about, I think is a great and healthy practice. Now, do I think blogging or vlogging or something of that nature is for everybody? No, I don't necessarily think it's for everybody, but I think there's something to be said for journaling, right? And even if you're only sharing sharing it with yourself, writing down your thoughts and reflecting on what your thoughts are on a regular basis, I think is a healthy practice. And I think that certain things like that, leaving that cookie trail behind, can kind of lead you to certain things that you're passionate about. And I think that the more that we do that, the more that we get comfortable with reflecting on where we're at in our current stages of life, whether you're 18 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, as my dad would say. I think that's such a healthy practice to be able to do. And just for conversation's sake, I actually disagree with like 70%, or at least I should say the overarching message that Seth put out there, which was he doesn't feel, if you watch the whole video, he doesn't feel that people have a calling. I disagree, but whether I disagree isn't the point of this video. So I don't want to drag today's video on too long. Thank you for hanging in there with me through the weird lighting and the audio and me being in my car and all that kind of stuff. But my clear and concise message to you today through this video is just fail at something that you believe in. I can't speak to it enough. It's going to set the foundation for everything that I do moving forward. It's a promise I'm making to myself. If it's a promise that you feel like you need to make it to yourself, feel free. You have the permission to do so. Fail at something that you believe in. It'll take you so much farther. You'll be so much more satisfied, and your conscience will just be that much more clear. And you won't have to worry about if certain circumstances change or if they go away. What if the money goes away? What if this goes away? What if the attention goes away? Find a purpose, find a passion, pursue it with everything that you have, and do it because you believe in it. So I know of no greater example of what I'm talking about that I saw this week. My two brothers in Christ, George and David, performing a poem that George's wife Amber wrote and that they performed at a recent music night at our church. And I thought that I'd share it with you guys, kind of a birthday present to David. Happy birthday, big dog. And here, yeah, check it out.
He's a big dog with big moves. Hard to liberate, rescue. Who will go with him? His goodness to show. Who will go with him? His goodness to show. He's a big dog with big moves. Hard to liberate, rescue. Who will go with him? His goodness to show. Who will go with him? His goodness to show. Who will go with him? I will go with him. Who will go with him? I will go with him. Who will go with him? 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 Who will go with him?
Anything in my teeth?